Welcome to the FitBiz Accelerator, your ultimate guide to launching, growing, and scaling a thriving online fitness business. I'm your host, Tobias Young, and whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, this podcast is packed with actionable tips, real-world strategies, and the insights you need to crush your business goals and build the business of your dreams. Now that you're here, let's dive in. What's up, party people? Great to have y'all in here. This is Tobias Young, your host of the FitBiz Accelerator, and I am joined by all-star Wendy Fortino, who is an 8-time Olympian and just overall badass and wonderful human being. Like, I got a chance to know her more. That we've always been, I guess, kind of like acquaintances at show, expos and stuff. And now, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, she is super freaking cool. Like, this chick, she is amazing. So you guys, and you're gonna be able to tune in and dive in, and we're gonna go over a lot of different things, everything from her background and so forth. So let me give you guys a brief little breakdown on Wendy. And Wendy is not one of those types that is like all just only thinks about competing. And that's like, she has her master's degree in exercise phys. Like, you don't have your master's degree unless you really got your stuff together. Undergrad in kinesiology and, believe it or not, art, which we'll dive into too. She's ACSM certified, and she has her exercise physiologist, health fitness specialist, personal trainer cert. And she's been an IFBB pro since 2011. For those of you who don't follow Wendy Fortino already, make sure you follow her, because, dude, she just brings it. She brings it, and she brings it to every single one of her shows. She brings it everywhere she goes. And she's also the co-host of Fem Flex Friday on Olympia TV, which is on YouTube, and also the media specialist. And yeah, there's a lot of things she's doing. The media specialist for Wolfpack. And she's also hosting Top Fitness Celebs on Wolfpack TV. And she helps out with coaching and posing and doing everything else. So, Wendy, so glad to have you in here. Did I miss anything?
Oh my God, talk about introduction. Jeez. I mean, we all have layers, right? And I mean, it'd be impossible for us to be able to list all of our layers out, but no, you cover pretty good.
All right. Sounds good. And then let me ask you this, because you have such a wonderful background. And what initially sparked your interest in combining exercise science with art? And how does that influence your work as, in the fitness industry or as a fitness coach, or, some of the things that you're doing?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I don't think people really can appreciate how the two are combined in the world of bodybuilding. And it was interesting because when I was going to college, I was in my undergrad, I had on one end of the campus was my exercise science classes, and then the other end of the campus was my art classes. And I remember going back and forth, across the campus. And, art is something interesting, because I think, some of the best artists don't necessarily have degrees. For me, getting a degree in art was not how I learned how to do art. I mean, I've been an artist my whole life. I was very artistic. It was really my ability to kind of hone in my skills, figure out more about colors and how to create things and stuff like that. So it kind of just refined my skill set in art. But then exercise and physiology was a passion of mine. And so I was a track athlete in college, and then I was a track athlete in grad school, racing with A6 Aggies team. And then when I discovered bodybuilding, it was like, whoa. I mean, that's when I realized, wow, because I am very artistic. I see everything in art. And when I started doing bodybuilding, I started learning about shapes. And I learned about what types of physiques really create that visually aesthetic flow. Yep. I had no idea what a V taper was or anything like that. But when I saw a shape that was, had a V shape to it, I'm like, wow. And I started, rather than training for performance, which I was doing in track and gymnastics, all of a sudden I was able to, have really good kinesthetic awareness. I was able to very quickly start training in the way that you're really going for the aesthetic, not necessarily for performance, honing that in. And so very early on, I was already looking at bodybuilding as an art and not so much from a performance standpoint. So now at this point, I absolutely think that bodybuilding is an art, and it's combining the two as almost like the best that you possibly can combine the two,
Yeah, I remember the old school Flex Wheeler. He was my favorite bodybuilder of all time because he just had this symmetry and these lines and these shapes that just like, oh my gosh. And there was others, there was Sean Ray and
Yeah.
there's some other good ones in there too. But Flex was always my favorite. Just the way his shoulders popped and just his full muscle bellies. But he wasn't, one of the biggest, some of those guys today are just ginormous. They're just more mass. But I'm a lot more of a fan of that aesthetic look in there too.
Flex is definitely the sultan of symmetry. He came out, and the thing that really stood out on him was his tiny waist and then the huge round muscle bellies that fanned out in his back and his shoulders and his arms. And I think he was definitely one of the athletes that when he stepped on stage, it made everyone else go, oh my gosh, we've got to make our waist smaller to be able to stand next to him. And, this idea of being able to keep your waist small while you're building these muscles that it's hard for people to figure out what exercises to do to build their legs without building a thick core. So it's strategy, it's artistry, it's really trying to get, manipulate, exercise science in a way that, athletes just don't need to worry about it because they're worried about performance. So it takes a whole nother level of just artistic, concepts to create something like that.
Yeah. Who was your all-time favorite? I know you're probably going to say, because I know you kind of work for it a little bit, but was Linda Murray one of your favorites as far as that symmetry and aesthetics, or who was your fave?
Okay. So female. Linda Murray is one of my favorite physiques, obviously, everyone loves Linda. I happen to be also a really close friend of hers now, which is awesome. But it's funny, when I first started competing, I was a track athlete. I was preparing for the Olympic. I feel like I've told this story so many times, but I've never told you. So in 2008, I was actually preparing for the Olympic trials in track. And that was my whole life. That was my whole world. And I got a stress fracture in my foot. And at the time, Matt and I had only been dating for a month. And he was a bodybuilder, and I didn't really know much about that world, but I'm like, okay, that's cool. You're doing your thing. I'm doing my thing. He came to watch me race a couple times, and, we were just kind of doing our own thing. And when I got a stress fracture, I was so depressed. I was so bummed out. I was like, oh my goodness. And he said, come over it was Ray's Built Tough Jump. I don't know if you know Ray Artie.
Yeah, I think we've met before, but I don't know him on a deeper personal level by any means. Yeah.
Okay. Before personal training studios were a thing, Ray already had a personal training studio in San Jose, and it was not now there's so many personal training studios, but it was this really unique thing, this little pocket in San Jose that was kind of magical, where you had trainers who were, it was this little section of bodybuilders, and bodybuilding hadn't really blown up yet. People didn't really know much about it at the time, especially women. And so when, I went to the gym to train to get my mind off of being hurt, everybody at the gym was like, you got to put her in a show. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I am so not doing that. And then Matt, he got a DVD called The Secret of Beauty. It was a Monica Brandt DVD, and I watched it, and I was like, okay, that's beautiful. I definitely want to do that, Interesting enough, I know I'm making this story really long, but I'm going to tell you a really cool full story moment here. I learned how to pose by watching Monica pose in that DVD. That's how I taught myself, because there wasn't a bunch of stuff on YouTube. There weren't posing coaches everywhere. I mean, there was really not nobody really to help you figure out what to do. That's how I taught myself how to pose. Fast forward to, I think it was 2016 when I launched my polished presentation product, which was a virtual posing product. A lot of people bought that product. It was really, really awesome. It was a unique thing at the time. And I remember seeing the purchases come in, and I see Monica Brandt. So Monica bought my posing product in 2016. Remember, and not too long after that, her and I connected, and I ended up being a co-host on her Monica Brandt show, and we're basically best friends now. We're so connected at this point. So it was just kind of a cool full story moment, because she was the first kind of person that really sparked my kind of, attention in the sport. So it's kind of cool.
Wow, that's a trip. Yeah, I remember, seeing Monica, and she was in a lot of the magazines and things. I was like, man, she's freaking hot. Not only did she have shape, but she just, she carried herself really well too. So it was super cool. I love that.
Yeah.
So
we're going to have the viewers see my dog, because she is
Look at the
Q just
eyes.
wants to
Look at
be
the
with
eyes,
me.
you
I'm
guys.
sorry.
Two different color eyes. Super beautiful
I
dog.
hope you guys don't mind. Everyone who's live, I hope you don't mind. But
No, we love dogs here. What lessons did you learn on your path to becoming an 8-time Miss Olympia figure competitor that can help everyday fitness coaches be able to elevate their own business? Like, there's got to be some different type of next level work ethic or something.
yeah. I have to say you can't really prepare someone for what you learn when you're reaching your goals, because when you look on paper it says 8-time Olympia qualified. I qualified 8 times, which is awesome. But I mean, I learned so much about myself in all of the defeats, all of those gut wrenching feelings that we all feel. But there is a hell of a lot more of those than the feeling of victory and the feeling of success. And I think that it's a journey that I think you learn so much about yourself. I mean, I had no idea how strong I was. I had no idea how resilient I could be until I found out getting knocked down, losing, failing, being disappointed in myself. Because let's be real, this isn't just you're losing because you get last place. I mean, I'm talking you lose because you didn't come with your best. You could have done better. That you just know no one is perfect, and maybe you let something get to you and you weren't training as hard as you could have. There are so many different layers to losing. It's not like the placing that you get, but you figure out, you take accountability. And I would say that's after talking this out, I would say that the number one thing I would say that really helps you move forward is taking accountability for everything.
Yeah.
I think that we have a tendency, we all do, we have a tendency to, when we don't get what we want, we think about all the variables that were in our way. Like, what prevented us from getting this thing that we wanted? And how do we remove those variables or change those variables, whether it be like, our environment, like our coach, our, whatever we feel like hurt us. And we think that if we change those things, like, we're suddenly going to reach what we want to reach. But if you just eliminate thinking about all that and you completely go, what could I have done? That's the number one key for me that I just continue to do on my journey. I learned that I'm somebody who's capable of doing that, which you don't really realize about yourself until you really enter that journey. You go through that journey. 15 years, 16 years now competing. I've been on a journey.
Oh my gosh. I competed from 2002 to 2017. So it was 16 years total.
You did too.
Yeah.
2002? You started in 2002. You started before there even was figure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I did my first competition. I think it was Border States. It was in San Diego, Border States. Wow. I don't know if they still have it.
You look so young. That's crazy.
I'm 49. Yeah.
Wow, you look young. That's crazy.
Thank you. Tobias Young. I'll always be young. I'm goofy too. So yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. But yeah, I competed for many, many years. It was a huge part of my life. It opened up a lot of great doors, and it was fantastic. But one of the things that I used to kind of like use as a driver when I would compete, and it wasn't so much on compete because, sometimes there's some big names that you're like, shoot, I got to go against this person or whatever. I got to freaking bring it. But for me, it was a little bit different. I didn't really compete against that. I competed against myself. I was like, Tobias, like, you were lacking in back. You need to bring out your back, big boy, because you're looking a little narrow. Like, it was always me. And then there would be kind of like my shoulders. And if I can improve, and I knew that I was giving it my 100%, no matter how my placing was, like, I was like, I did it. Like, I brought it. And that's was, probably my biggest mindset thing that I would say that just kept driving me is not how I would place, but how I would do, against myself. And if I didn't bring it, then even if I placed first in the competition, I was mad because I was like, dude, I could have come so much better. Oh,
yeah.
What about you?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of layers to competing, right? I know a lot of people say that. A lot of people say, oh, it's me versus me. And, I don't look at any of the competition. I agree with that partially because I think that, yes, if you come with your absolute best, then you should be proud of yourself no matter what, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that we all help each other, get to the next level. And for me, when I study my competition and I study, and I assume that I'm not the hardest worker in the room. I assume that somebody else is working harder than me doing this, and I study what other people are doing for their homework. That helps me get a trigger and fire under my butt to dig a little deeper, right? I look at like the artistry that other people are producing and I become even more artistic and I hone in my craft even more. I do give my best. I absolutely collect data and information around me in order to really hone that in and get to the next level. I don't think if I wasn't paying attention to everything else around me, I don't think I would have reached the level that I have up to now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm just trying to get better than myself last time, that's very honorable and that's good. But I think looking at other people, I'm like, I could do that too. Like if somebody's able to do that, like I could do that. Why can't I do that? And that's what makes me mentally just shift my whole entire level and my energy. And it is work. And also getting on the big stages, nothing humbles you more than thinking that you're so good and then getting up against other girls who are extremely talented, really good at what they're doing. And that is the best, I will say the best humbling thing that could possibly happen to anybody is competing in a level that's a little above themselves. And really fast, I'll say, like, I do think people try to play it safe by, getting excited when there's no one that, is as good as them that they're competing against, or they don't want people that are better than them to be at the same show or whatever. And that is a surefire way to not get to the next level,
Ooh. Yeah. Take that punch on the chin, y'all.
I'm sorry if that was a punch on the chin.
No, it's a good punch on the chin.
That's my opinion.
It's a good punch on the chin because it's like, dude, step up your game. Like if you, it's okay. It's okay. You're good. Yeah, no, I love it. And what about this? Like, were there any particular challenges that you faced balancing your competition prep and running your fitness business? Because you were doing coaching, and I know now you're doing a lot of more media stuff than fitness coaching, but when you were primarily focused with Matt on just that fitness coaching, was it a pretty big challenge for you trying to make that balance with everything, especially right in the middle of preps and so forth?
I never really had too many issues. I will say that when I was, really heavy in coaching, and that was like what I did full time around the clock, we went to every show, which was easier to do before because now there's so many shows and we have athletes competing in different states all the time and all over the place that it's really difficult. We can't really commit to doing many shows now. We don't want to leave athletes out or whatever. But back when I was really, heavy into that, I think my biggest problem was always I felt like I didn't want anyone to think that I was focused more on myself than them. And I actually had considered like an early retirement back in, I think it was like, I don't know, 2018, 2019. I was considering, and I mean, I've competed in 5 more Olympias since then.
Wow.
So, I mean, I was considering an early retirement because I felt like oh my gosh, I feel like I need to, I don't want to seem like I'm like the center of attention on our team or whatever. I was always so concerned about that, which I don't think anybody ever thought that about me, but it was always my stressor, right? But I've always said this to our athletes, and I mean this with my heart, is that, as a coach, I feel like if I can help you become better than me, then that means that I'm a good coach, and that was always more important to me. Like if I were on stage with somebody that I helped coach and they placed ahead of me, I would consider that to be a win. Like I helped you get even, surpass me. Wow. Like I must be good at what I do. So that, that's always how I felt. But I think when you coach the same thing that you compete in, I think that there's always going to be that. I don't think you can really get around that. I think if anybody tries to say it doesn't exist, they're probably, being fake or lying because it's a real thing, right? And I think that was always a real concern for me.
That's nice. It's very unselfish of you. And I wish a lot more coaches had that same kind of thought process in there too,
Yeah.
because some of them, might get upset if one of their students in there too. Same thing with jujitsu. I do jujitsu too. And like
Oh,
sometimes,
okay.
yeah. So what about when you first started to transition from a lot of your in-person, because you guys have your own in-person business, and then you started transition online? What were some of the strategies that you used to transition coaches, or if there's any certain platforms that you guys used to be able to do that?
Well, interestingly enough, I actually managed all the fitness facilities at Stanford University for 6 years. And that
Oh,
was before that, I was a wellness director at a YMCA. And before that, I was finishing grad school. So I went from grad school to the YMCA to Stanford University. And I basically, I think it was like 2000, I want to say like 2013,
hmm
I left my job at Stanford, and it was really scary at the time because that was literally a dream job. I was paid very well. I was, it was nuts. I had the absolute best job in the world you could possibly think of, with a graduate degree and the experience that I had. But I was, and people don't realize this, and you do, I'm sure, but there is a scientific reason for a 12-week plan, right? I mean, it takes 3 months for somebody to make a real change. And when I was at Stanford, I had started a 12-week program, that I taught my trainers and my coaches. And I hadn't really heard of anything like it before, but it was a progressive program that, helped people through, fitness and, for all the faculty and all the staff and
nice.
all the employees and everything at the university. And I was like, you know what? I could do this. I could start this on my own. Matt was doing hands-on coaching, and he was dabbling a little bit with online stuff, but there weren't really any online coaches at the time. There
hmm
weren't anyone. It wasn't anyone paving the way. There weren't any benchmarks to go off of. I mean, we really started from scratch without anyone leading the way. So when I left Stanford and I started online coaching, I didn't do any hands-on. I went straight to online. I wanted to protect my time. I didn't want to have like a whole hour with just one person. I wanted to be able to create. I just started creating stuff. As soon as I came out, I was creating stuff. So yeah, there wasn't really a transition for me in that sense. I really just dove right in. That's kind of how I approach everything. If
Go
I
all in. Yeah.
I just like go all in. I create a plan. I decide this is how it's going to happen, and I just run. And it was cool because right around that time is when social media started. Instagram started taking off. I started an Instagram account, and that really helped funnel at the time it was really effective. It's not so much anymore. I mean, there's a evolution to everything, right? At the
Mm.
time, it was super effective marketing funnel for online coaching. But so
Is there a certain mistake that you see a lot of coaches make when they try to make that transition, online, or
a
maybe scale?
a certain mistake, like as in one, no,
Yes, I know there's a ton, but like, what's something that, or maybe there's a
just
couple things,
one.
and you're just
Wow, I gotta narrow
like,
it down. Not
what are your top five? No, uh,
if I can narrow it down. No, I think okay, I'm going to start with this, and I don't know if this is necessarily a mistake in terms of on paper, but it is more of like an energy thing, right? I think that energy wise, one thing that I think puts people off is when you are a coach. I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. But when you're a coach and you are the mentor, you're the guide, you're the one with the game plan that if somebody executes it, they can be successful, right? I've always had a really hard time taking a lot of credit for somebody else's success, even if I gave them the guide and the mentorship, because at the end of the day, when somebody gets up every morning, makes their food, does their workout, does the work day in and day out, and gets the results, that person is the person that accomplished the goal. And what I see a lot of times is coaches taking so much credit. My client, this, look at what I did. And I just feel like that takes the human component out of the person's accomplishment. That I don't know. It kind of bothers me a little bit. That's one thing that I have kind of noticed a trend, and I've just never. Maybe that's one thing that's hurt me. That maybe I could have even expanded more. I don't know. It's hard for me to do that though. I think people people, there's that human component, the connection and the vibe that you get from somebody when they really genuinely want to see someone else succeed. It's more about the
Yeah.
person and less about you as the coach, right?
It is. Yes. All about that. And you bringing that out is good. Like I said, I told you guys, Wendy is real. She is super authentic. And that's one of the things that, make you stand out too, which
Maybe
is
too
fantastic.
real.
So no, it's good. You can tell that you're just a very caring person and you care about clients and you care about, the success of the people around you, which is good. So, being in the space, obviously, we have been around people in the fitness industry and it's all about them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's nice to be able to also be like fresh where it's like, no, not everybody's like that, you guys. Cause I used to,
I do understand though, like
Yeah.
it's a hard world out there. If somebody is really trying to build a coaching business, obviously I come with a lot of experience and we have a lot of retention, which really helps a lot when you have a tenure and a lot of retention. But
Yep.
it's really difficult to compete in this day and age, right? Because there are so many coaches, you're competing against a lot of people. So how do you showcase your ability and your skill set when somebody is really looking for that shiny object? And so you got to play the game too, So I can understand how somebody would want to really take credit for people and like put, this is what I've done and look at what I can do. I don't know. It's a hard balance to make, right? How do you create that human touch and connection at the same time, really get across how much success you've had and how much you can really help somebody,
I think you have to put out there what you've done and what you've helped people with. So I think there is that balance in there too, but it's like, this is what I meant by it is if you have a client that is very, very successful, is just not taking all, like, yeah, I helped the client do that. And they didn't do that because of them. It was because I helped it. You know what I mean? Some coaches are kind of like that where other people are like, yeah, they freaking did it. Yes. I'm so happy for them. Like, in there too. But like if we transition over to kind of like media presence and we get into branding, how has being a co-host, I should say, on Femme Flex Friday, how has that strengthened your personal brand and expanded your reach for yourself?
Well, when I started with Femme Flex Friday, it was 2022, so like 3 years ago. And I remember like right out of the gate, it was so awesome because I felt like I finally had a safe platform to be able to express myself. I mean, when I first started with the girls, it was me, Linda, Camille Perriott, and Whitney Jones. And there was the four of us, and we started a round table, like The View type of show where we discussed all sorts of topics like gym toxicity and bullying and just dating stuff and just all kinds of fun topics that we all chimed in about from, the fitness perspective, right? And we collected a pretty awesome audience, and we had all kinds of people that would reach out to us and send us things and tell us how much we were our voices really like resonated with them. And that was so cool because I remember feeling like for the first time I finally had this platform where I could really connect to people and really express myself. And not that I hadn't been doing that, but it was in a whole new way. So that was, I felt like I was in a safe space too. I remember I opened up about things and opinions that I hadn't felt comfortable opening up to on my own personal, social media platforms, because I had the safety net of the other co-hosts to kind of they either disagreed with me and that was a safe space, or they agreed with me and that was, it was cool to have the ability to kind of roundtable with other really awesome women, right? We switched our show over to a live show on Fridays because we changed our platform from, we were on Wings of Strength YouTube channel. We switched our show over to Olympia TV. So it's just two different types of content. With Olympia TV, you've got to be rapid and relevant. You have to cover things like the Arnold lineup, the Olympia show, the recap. On the Olympia TV platform, it's a different type of show. So now it's mostly me and Linda, mostly co-host, and then Whitney and Camille come in when they can. We've got Adela Garcia now who helps us co-host, who's an 8-time Fitness Olympia champion. Yep. And now that's, that show is so much fun. I love covering the industry. I love having top athletes on our show, interviewing them. It's been an awesome ride. I have found my voice a little bit in that, which has been kind of cool.
Nice, 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 nice. Yeah, it's always good to be in your vibe. Like if you were to be able to take one format, like kind of like the older school where it's kind of like The View, or versus the new school, what you have now, what do you like better?
I like them both the same in different ways, right? I think a combination of both. Like I do the same thing. So, I mean, kind of switching gears to Wolfpack. So I do media for Wolfpack and I also do media for Olympia TV. And I do the same thing with Wolfpack. I have a studio, actually one-on-one show. It's called Make Your Mark. And the owner, Michael Henderson, he started his brand 4 years ago out of his garage. And it was after he overcame cancer and he has a family, he has two daughters, he has a son, he has a wife, and he wanted to create a brand. He was inspired after overcoming cancer to create something that he can leave on for his family as his legacy. And it really sparked this next phase in his brand where, we're incorporating media into the brand to tell people stories through this series called Make Your Mark. Like, how are you making your mark? And I'm pulling top, like, influential people, not necessarily just athletes, but celebrities, athletes, influential people in our past and current generations to sit down one-on-one in a studio interview, tell their stories. And that's been really, really cool. So there's the studio. And then I also do a live show with Wolfpack where, we are the official bag for UFC, Power Slap, Street League skateboarding.
Nice.
We have Nitro Circus. I don't know if you've heard of Nitro Circus.
Mm-mm.
But covering media in all those different avenues has been really fun too. So a little bit of everything, I guess, to answer your question. The studio stuff is fun. The roundtable stuff is fun. The live stuff is fun, all for different reasons.
Yeah.
I think it's important in media to be rapid and relevant. So, being able to cover whatever's going on in the moment. If you don't, you're going to fall behind. You got to be able to do that in media to keep up, right?
Yeah, watching those power slap sets you manage power slap, man. Watching that, sometimes it comes across my feed for whatever reason, and seeing that stuff. You would actually go there and see those too, and kind of comment on that stuff. Or
I'm going to tell you something. I thought it was funny, but these people are badass. I'm telling you right now. This sport, Dana White took it on, and he has really made it, like, the production of it, the excitement of it. I mean, there's rules. I mean, they're kind of making them up as they go, but there really are, like, rules that are being established in this sport. And it is actually exciting. I've had to kind of immerse myself into it because I'm covering it in, with Wolfpack, but I've found myself immersed in it and a little bit just started with fascination. And now I'm following the athletes and I'm really into it. So I don't know, you'd be surprised. Just when you start getting in there, you'll see what I mean.
Man, I've had 7 concussions already, and I'm like, man, that is one sport I would not want to do. Like, no matter, I mean, I can hit pretty hard, but I wouldn't.
You can't mess up that pretty face.
I wouldn't want to get hit. Like, I'm like, man, like, I wouldn't want to just keep getting hit over and over. Okay, let me hit you now. Let me hit me. Like, no, like, no, Dana. No, I'd rather do UFC than that because at least I can protect myself. That is funny. But what advice would you give a fitness coach who wants to start? I know it's kind of transitioning. Who wants to start power slapping? No, who wants to start leveraging social media or YouTube, like to be able to attract more clients? Is there anything that worked, well for you or for Matt when you guys were building that out that would help out?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, be consistent. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, find a style that works for you. Right? I mean, I think there's a lot of textbook ways to make certain posts or make things look a certain way, but people connect to people, and if you are your authentic self, people are going to be drawn to that first of all. And then I would say, think about the population that you serve the best, right? And then find creative ways to look for people in that population, with hashtags or whatnot, and start to follow them, like their photos, pay attention to them, see what, try to almost like, kind of scouting out your perfect set of clients and that's kind of what I do all the time. I'm always like looking to see like who's out there, what are people doing? And I love finding new people, following new people, giving props to people that are on a fitness journey. And people really, everyone wants to feel heard, right? One of the greatest human experiences and desires is to feel heard. And we focus so much on what we're getting out of something that when you stop and you realize that if you provide someone else with the experience of feeling heard and seen, and admired, it goes a long way, no matter who you are. If you show somebody that you hear them and you see them and you admire them, it will go a long way. And I think, when you want to be successful as a coach, I think that's what you should definitely master.
I agree with you. And one of the things that makes people really, really happy is seeing that actually somebody from a higher level perspective, like a coach, would say something like, "Oh my God, like the transformation that you made was freaking phenomenal. Like that, you did that in 6 months or whatever." Like, and they're able to hear it from a coach. It's a little bit different from like a family member that, but yeah, 100%. And then you've worked and connected with a lot of leading fitness influencers and personalities. And what's been the most, if you can think of one thing, what's been the most valuable takeaway from collaborating, with them that you can kind of share with the audience here?
I will say that the most successful people are a little insane. There are commonalities trends that you start to find. When I sit down with really influential people who have achieved a lot in life, I do find commonalities between them. People who achieve a lot in life are extremely resilient people. And interestingly, they are people that have been through the most heartache, the most loss, the most adversity. I think people who have become the most resilient, strong souls, and that is a huge part of why they turn into being the most successful, right? Interestingly enough, I have noticed in the world of bodybuilding, some of the most successful bodybuilders were not the most genetically gifted. I think that being extremely genetically gifted in anything that you do, it could be a blessing or a curse, And I think it's a blessing up to a certain point, but then we all reach a point in our life where the hard work has to kick in. And if you haven't learned that because you had to, you have to find it from within. And some people can. And then hard work and talent, when they meet, that's obviously game over. But I think that, the people that have had to work their butt off from an early point in life tend to achieve the highest levels. They tend to go the farthest in life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But resilience, I would say sorry, my dog. I would say resilience. I would say when I meet somebody who has achieved a lot in life, they are the most resilient people in general.
For you, what was the one thing that was that determining factor that made you resilient? Was it the injury as you were preparing for the Olympic trials? Is that what you would kind of like?
Oh man. I've had a lot in my day. I mean, mine started, I remember when I was in college, it was my senior year, indoor track nationals. I said, well, what are you doing? So I'll never forget this. Is something that you don't ever forget, right? So my senior year in college, it was my last indoor 800 national championships. And I remember I always took off. I always ran as fast as I could for as long as I could. I never had strategy. That was always my strategy, is just to jet out as fast as I could. Everyone knew Wendy's going to go. She's going to lead the first lap. I was short and tiny, so I didn't want to have to worry about elbowing anyone. So I just knew I'm just going to go. So I took off and I cut in too early, and I had no idea that I had disqualified myself. And this was in preliminaries. And I remember I was finished the race and I was so excited because I felt like this is my best time. Like I could just tell I'm moving on to semifinals and this is going to be my year. This is going to be and I look up and I see all the girls' names. I see someone and then I see someone else. I'm like, I felt like I think I was like top 2, top 3. Like, what's going on? I'm seeing the names and boom, boom. I see all the way down and my heart just sinks.
Oof.
I just like fall out of my chest. It just falls out of my chest. And I look down, I see my name, and it still gives me chills and makes me want to cry. It says Wendy Fortino, DQ. I was in the middle of Boston, my last indoor national championships of my entire college career, done, just done, without even a result. And when I tell you I was devastated, I can't even tell you like how devastating that was. It was insanely heartbreaking, but I thought I was never going to come out of that. I mean, it still affects me just thinking about it. I never thought I was going to come out of that. I was so heartbroken and so depressed about it for so long. I thought, I'm never going to be able to get this back. And it ate at me and ate at me. I never really found like fulfillment in track after that moment. Like I continued, I obviously competed at a really high level. But then, when I found bodybuilding, I mean, I had already built so much resilience by the time I started bodybuilding. When I did my first show, I didn't have a fair idea of how hard it would be because I won the overall in my first show. I was one of those people who was very genetically inclined to do well right out of the gate. And I didn't really diet very hard. I just kind of walked right on stage
Lucky.
from my track career and won the show and thought, this isn't hard. Like, this is no big deal. Well, yeah, it was hard once I started stepping up to different levels, right? When I got to my
Yeah.
first national show, I didn't win my pro card right away. I had already won 4 overall titles. Got to nationals, thought I'm going to win my pro card easily, and no, I got my butt kicked. But that was the best thing that could have happened to me because when I got my butt kicked, I realized now this is something I really want to do. Like now this is serious. That's where you learn about yourself. I realized that's who I am. Like I'm somebody who fights harder when I get defeated. And you kind of like enjoy in a weird twisted way those defeats because it helps you pull something out of yourself that you didn't realize you had. And that every single step of the way there was this like, heart sinking experience. And then it just like you pull yourself out of it and then you dig deep and you get to that next place where you have this crazy awesome victory, highs and lows, and you just get addicted to that. And that's where you create your whole character.
And it brought out Wendy the Beast, the unstuff. Yes. And like obviously you have a lot going on. So with everything that you're doing, if you have any type of personal productivity or any type of time management hacks that you use to juggle competition, coaching, media appearances, is there anything that you have kind of like laid out that keeps you in check or in line, or you have a daily formula, or you plan things out certain ways, or how do you manage all that?
Okay, I'm going to start off by telling you the truth. You know how everyone wants to pat themselves on the back and say that they're type A? Oh, you must be type A because you do so much. You must be type A. No, I'm not type A. I don't know what type I am, but I am not type A. I have a really hard time. I have a hard time being organized. I have a hard time staying organized. So my tactic is as soon as I need to do something, I do it right then and there. I don't wait. I don't delay. I don't procrastinate. Because if I do, that's where I run into problems. You know what I mean? I will say that I may not be very organized, but I definitely do a really good job of prioritizing. If something needs to be done imminently, I will do it right then and there. And if something is maybe a little bit lower priority, I won't delay. If I have time to do it, I'll do it right then and there. But there's something else that takes priority, I'll do that first.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess that's it. But I don't think you necessarily have to be a super high level organized person. I will actually say this. I think that sometimes overly organizing yourself can actually be a hindrance. And this goes with actually interviewing people too. And you're really good at this. I will have to say, I have noticed. But in interviews, if you were to put together a list of questions, for example, that you want to ask somebody, and you organize them so meticulously, but then you get into the conversation and you're so focused on the questions that you want to ask that person, you miss all the gold mines. You miss all those awesome roads that you're going down with this person because you are so focused on these questions that you want to ask them, right? And it becomes so robotic and it doesn't flow. that's just an example, but I think in everything that we do, I think if we overly organize ourselves and overly structure ourselves, I think that we miss opportunities, we miss energies around us that we could be kind of have our blinders onto. So that was a very long-winded answer, but does that make sense?
It does make sense. And so, you guys, let me put it in the micro perspective: is enjoy the moment. Like,
Yeah.
don't, because obviously, yeah, you want to have some type of structure, because structure is definitely helpful. But if you over structure and you don't enjoy, the process and things in there too, especially if you bring it into competing. I remember
See,
if you,
that's a little bit of a different subject. I have a different opinion about competing and that. So I'll wait for you to tell your thoughts right now.
boy, you can talk first if you want. But what I also realized is with competing, you have to have very, very diligent structure, like in order to do well, right? It's not just going on a stage, but it's like, at a high level. But also, I feel like if you don't enjoy the process, it's not going to be a long-lived career for you, because you're just doing it to basically do it, and you're not like getting fulfillment out of that. I feel like you have to have fulfillment. And yeah, there's going to be times that you're just like, I freaking hate this shit. Like, you're going to go through those times. Everybody goes through them. And then, the next day you're like, oh my God, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, this is fun. This is good in there too. But Wendy, go ahead.
Yeah. I think, okay, so that's a totally different, I'm having a different opinion when it comes to wanting to achieve results with your body, right? Anyone who comes into a goal and they're already like used to certain series of daily habits, right? Let's say somebody needs to lose 30 pounds, and whatever they've done up to the point where they need to lose 30 pounds is not working for them, right? That person obviously needs a lot of structure, at least at the beginning. Because if you don't give that person enough structure, they're going to resort to their old habits, and to kind of rewire someone's daily habits, early structure is really, really key, right? So that is one category of person. But then also, if you want to achieve a high level physique, you need to rule out variables, right? You need to rule out variables so that you can problem solve more easily. If you're incorporating all kinds of variables, you're working out at different times all day, you're eating different foods all day, you're eating at different times all day, you now have no ability to problem solve. If you want to make adjustments, if you aren't maybe going in the right direction, now all of a sudden you've got so many variables in this equation, you don't know how to fix things, right? Or if you have a coach that's giving you a plan and you're all hodgepodge in it and you're all over the place, you're expecting this coach to wave a magic wand, because no one's gonna be able to figure you out if you are not being consistent with the structure. So when it comes to achieving a high level physique, or it comes to somebody starting a plan from poor daily habits that need to be changed, those categories need structure with diet and training and whatnot, right? Now, when it comes to career, when it comes to being in a creative space like I am, like in media, where I'm relying on creativity and constant problem solving, too much structure would really hinder me from being able to be successful in that space. I'm sure there are jobs, like my twin sister's a lawyer. I'm sure that her situation is a hell of a lot different than mine. She definitely needs structure. She's organizing cases. She needs to know exactly where every single thing is at. I mean, she's in a different career than me, so obviously hers would be different. So everyone's a little bit different, but for me, for what I do, I would say I am not type A.
I didn't even know you had a twin sister.
I do, yeah.
That's cool.
We're fraternal, but
Yeah.
we have the same mannerisms and we sound alike, but we don't look identical.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can definitely imagine it would be a whole different ballgame with a lawyer, because they would have a whole different lifestyle. It'd be
Right.
very tough. What about future, as we kind of narrow things down? Like, are there any emerging trends, Wendy, that you feel are going to have the biggest impact in online fitness coaching in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, anything that you've seen where it's like, oh my God, this is going to be the next freaking thing that people need to adapt, or anything that you can kind of get those feelings on? I know AI is one of those things that's kind of like coming in, smacking everybody in the mouth.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, geez, like, I mean, AI is getting so advanced, but it's not actually artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is actually like human made, humans enter information and data into a system so that we have AI. It's actually the machine learning that scares the crap out of me. So you have AI and you have machine learning. Machine learning is where the AI is actually learning you, and it's picking up. So ChatGPT is a combination of both. ChatGPT started off with AI, where it was just like information that was inserted into this system. And then it also incorporated machine learning. So as people asked it questions and got answers, it started figuring us all out. And now it's become more advanced. It's actually grown up with the whole group of people that have been using it, right?
Yeah.
And it has become smarter. And so that's what scares me. And as people use these tools more creatively, the machine learning component is actually learning us and advancing itself. So who knows? I mean, it is very rapidly, exponentially increasing its capabilities. I think that's probably the top number one thing I would say for something like online coaching and a lot of other fields too, but that would be absolutely at the top.
Yeah, because right now, man, you can create I remember everything used to, back in the day, it was like Excel spreadsheets, and then it kind of transitioned to online training apps, and because you've been doing online training for a long time, and and so forth. So you remember before there was all these fancy training apps, like you had to just like send people stuff like through Excel. Like, hope you know how to do this. And so it's definitely come in, and like now there's the AI meal plan builders, there's the AI workout builders. Like, whoa, it's kind of like, I guess, helping out a lot of trainers that maybe wouldn't be as inclined, with theirs. But anyhow, any final advice, including thoughts? So if we could say, if you can give one piece of advice, Wendy, to a new, business owner who's into fitness or an online coach aiming to grow their business, what would that advice be?
Don't delay. Start today. I know that sounds so stupid. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think that when you decide that you want to go for something, I think we spend so much time trying to map out exactly how we're going to do it perfectly, exactly how it's going to go the way that we want it to. But starting with very small steps and just going for it, I think is the number one thing. I think it's unrealistic to think that, somebody who is brand new to online coaching can just like drop their whole day job and just start diving in full-fledged and charge top prices right out of the gate. So maybe don't quit your day job. Start doing online coaching on the side if you're passionate about it. Start collecting your dream clients, reaching out to people on social media. And then if you're really good at it and you find that you're really passionate about it, then keep going that direction, and follow your passion. I would say whatever that may be, but if your passion becomes helping people and helping people with transformations, and you find that you're really good at it and you're really connecting to people, you're eventually going to get to a point where you can drop your day job and you can make it a full-time thing.
Oh yeah. That's the goal of all the new aspiring fitness coaches, is I want to be able to do this full time. All right. And where can people find you online? What's the best way to stay in touch with you and your upcoming projects that you have?
You can find me. Well, my social media is Wendy Fortino. I always have to spell it out because Wendy, Fortino. I can't tell you how many people have put 14-0 when I say that. Our business page is Cyber Body Shop. And I also have my polished presentation page, which still has really valuable information. I haven't really updated it in a while, but it still is, has some good stuff in there. And I do media for Wolfpack, which the YouTube channel is wolfpack.official. And also media, our show is on Olympia TV, FemFlex Friday. So that.
Man, so she's all over the place making stuff happen. Wendy, thank you so much for being here. You are fun, smart, amazing, and I know everybody has gotten a ton of value, and I always enjoyed jamming with you, and I really, really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to jam with me and the rest of the viewers out there. So yeah, absolutely. So thanks you guys for tuning in to the Online Fit Pro Accelerator. Thanks for tuning in to the FitBiz Accelerator, If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a tip or strategy to grow your online fitness business. And if you're ready to fast track your success, don't forget to check out tntfitprocoaching.com. Until next time, stay consistent, stay focused, and keep crushing it.